York State Senator Joe Bruno, he is in the clear. Now, last week, Bruno, he was acquitted of federal fraud charges, and he wants the state to pay his legal bills. Get that. Bruno says 2 trials and an appeals cost him more than $4 million. State law allows reimbursement of quote-unquote reasonable attorney fees. Bruno, as you may remember, was charged with taking bribes to direct state grants to a businessman. Now, Mr. Bruno said, "I cannot describe to anybody what it feels like to have the government, federal government, day and night on your mind, that their mission is to put you in prison. That's hard to go to bed at night with, and it's pretty hard when you get up in the morning, but the system works." Okay. My question, Jonathan, is not so much him personally, okay? But nobody from his clients could produce any work papers to show what he actually did for him. Nobody could really even explain what his role was. So he, in effect, was getting paid for access. And at the end of the day, the ruling to me, forget about Joe Bruno for a minute, says, you know what? It's legal.
It's legal, exactly. And I think
hopefully
it's a
big deal, isn't it?
A huge deal. I mean, I was shocked. But the fact that it had gone through 2 trials and everything, I mean, $4 million later on his side, he says $30 million is what the government's been going after him, which is crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's troubling, and I do think that the legislature needs to do something to change the laws here to prevent something like this from happening. You know, I mean, I know good government groups were all over this post the trial verdict and everything.
But
yeah,
explain for the general person, because you know the inner workings, both Albany as well as the city. In effect, you've got a lawmaker that you identify that could be important. Let's say he or she chairs a committee. He was the state Senate Majority Leader, right? One of the 3 men in the room, as they used to say.
Right.
Explain what this really says, that if you can identify now, post-ruling, and say, hey, I got a company here that'd love to get their hands on one of the contracts, you don't have to even be sly or coy about it. You can be up front.
You can, and unfortunately, because the legislative position is not a full-time job, you're able to earn outside income. Shelley Silver, the speaker, has part of a law firm where he makes, I think, $1 million a year he gets from them. I mean, they're allowed to do that, and many legislators, you talk about Greg Ball later in the show, are constantly looking for other ways to make money in their pockets. They're in a position of power, and they try to parlay that without breaking the law, if they could help themselves, to better themselves and their families. And that's what he's doing here.
But Richard, the rules are the rules.
Right.
We can call them crazy if we want to. There's a clause that says that if reasonable legal fees, and
he's going to get his money back.
And he should get his money back. Let's be honest about this. Prosecutors basically have unlimited resources to go after somebody. They could literally hire the best of the best of the best of experts and researchers. And if you're Joe Bruno, you better come up with that money to defend yourself or you're going to jail.
We'll see how it plays out. But Dominic, the net conclusion is, how many guys we know were scared, you know what, about how this whole Moreland Commission thing is going to play out now that the U.S. Attorney is involved? They're not completely connected, but they're kind of connected. They're going to say, hey, wait a minute. Look what Joe Bruno did, right? And I didn't get a yellow envelope. I got paid over the table here, and you know what?
But there's a big catch. You got to be cleared in a court of law. You got to be found not guilty in a court of law. That's a big up.
But there's a precedent that comes out of this, isn't there, Jeannie?
There absolutely is. And it's funny, I was just talking about this in the context of Chris Christie. What is shocking in so many of these scandals is, in fact, what is legal versus what is illegal.
Yeah.
And so where we may say, oh, the fact that the leader of the state Senate can accept this position and accept this money for what seems like very little work on his behalf, its access, should be illegal, is quite frankly not. But I agree with Dominic that, if that's the law and you've got this guy $4 million later, this guy has lost so much time fighting the federal government on these charges.
You mentioned time. I think the fact that he was 85, I think there's a human aspect to this. I think that played into it. They didn't want to send an 85-year-old guy to prison. But here's the memo to lawmakers now. Do it up front. Do what you're going to do up front. Don't take the shady envelope like in the parking lot anymore. You can, if you figure out a way to do this the way the system is, you can actually do this legally here.
But what about a change in New York State politics where legislators are paid for a full-time job that they are quite frankly doing? How can you expect to get good people at the salary that these people are paid?
I want to get this next one. I'm with you lockstep on this. All right. Did New York City's First Lady have the baby blues? Well, Charlene McCrary, she is fessing up to what she says is being a bad mom. McRae, the wife of Bill de Blasio, mother of two, speaking candidly about being a mom, and says she's had trouble adapting when her daughter Jara was born nearly 20 years ago. She says in part, quote, "The truth is, I could not spend every day with her. I didn't want to do that. I looked for all kinds of reasons not to do it." She also says she was 40 years old when she gave birth to her daughter and was at a point where she had, quote unquote, her own life. When you heard the words, did you say, well, this is definition of postpartum, or this is something different? This is someone being honest, albeit brutal? Or did you say, this is not a nice mom?
I said I was very glad that she was honest. You know, this is something that's not talked about a lot, and she was incredibly honest about how difficult it is and how many women are not, quite frankly, at the age of 40 after having worked their entire lives, having a baby, and then it is a full-time job. And for her to come out honestly and say she wasn't prepared for that, she was very clear. She loves her daughter. She loves her son. That's not the issue. It was the fact that here's an ambitious woman who worked her whole life, and she, quite frankly, wasn't prepared to give that all up for this baby that she had. And so it is, I thought she did a great job being very honest. I thought it was very interesting her take on Sandberg. I thought, you know, the whole lean-in issue was very interesting as well in this article. I was, quite frankly, surprised at how honest she was. And I've been critical of her in the past, but I thought this was incredibly...
she goes on in this interview to talk about a lot of things, including her role as First Lady, which is different than prior First Ladies. But you know how the media works. The only thing on the front page of the Post was bad mom, right? Yeah. All the context of how she loves the kids, all that she loves her kids and everything else. People are lucky if they even get past the first paragraph.
I did stop in my tracks when
I
saw that.
stopped in my tracks as well.
So now, politically, Dominic, is this good or bad the First Lady says this?
Not wise. I've known her a very long time, and she's a straight shooter. She's not really a politician, but she's a quiet type. The way she protects her husband, she's really good at that. She has always, and I've known de Blasio for more than 20 years, she's always at his side. She never says anything. She's always just standing there. I knew her when she was a speechwriter for Mayor Dinkins and going back, but I never really paid attention to her, no offense. You know, she was always in the background. I applaud her being honest because I think every mother, I mean, obviously we can't tell you what it's like to be a mother, but I think every mother has had experiences like that where she's being so candid. But I'm just, it's kind of off message. It's off agenda. First we heard the lesbian thing, then we heard the daughter, you know, the substance abuse. Now we're hearing that she didn't really want to be a parent or she had troubling issues with it. And it's like, when is all of this personal stuff going to stop?
Yeah, speak to the messaging part.
Yeah, I agree. The messaging is all over the place, and it's not consistent with the governing message that the mayor is putting forth, and it does take away from that, as evident by the New York Post headline, which I saw on the train today. Everybody had copies of it all over the train, you know, on the subway today.
So
no
this
question
isn't
about
part of some strategy here, which is leading to something.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
I mean, they're supposed to be regular Joe type of family, living in Park Slope, you know, not millionaires and living the everyday life. Their kid has issues just like a lot of kids have issues. They have issues like a lot of people have issues, but it's
maybe a little too much oversharing.
Yeah, it's oversharing.
Could it potentially be a way to reach to average people? I mean, I don't know, because I had the same question. Why? I mean, she was very honest, but...
And maybe this is why I haven't had an interview with her yet. She's the type of woman that if you ask her the right question, she's not going to lie. She's going to tell you exactly, you know, many politicians' wives, and I'm not saying that she's not polished, but they are very, very polished and on agenda, and they already have the response ready for the question before you ask it. She's not that type of woman.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of a politician that maybe polished doesn't go in the same sentence, our favorite, Milwaukee, soon-to-be ex-New York State Senator Greg Ball says he will not seek re-election. Ball also ruled out running for Putnam County Executive or U.S. Congress. Friday, he said he will return to the private sector and possibly pursue a career in real estate development. Hopefully, he'll also retire the chicken suit that he wore to stalk his challengers. Greg Ball, you have to try to make up stories as good as some of the real ones he did, from the goat in the driveway, where I think he blamed Brodsky first, and then it was some Salvadoran gang, and then I'll never forget the night that they voted on same-sex marriage. He's live with us at 9 o'clock saying, you know what, I made a principled decision to vote for it, and we'll see how the vote turns out tonight. Then I go and read the vote. He voted against it. You know, and as soon as he went off our air, so you can't make this stuff up about him. But do you remember somebody just so unique?
No, but listen, some people think of him as extremely honest, straight, like a no BS type of guy. And sure, he has some charades, and some people get a kick out of it.
Christie.
Particularly a lot of those on the right get a kick at some of the stuff he does. But I mean, listen, I know guys that manage the campaigns against him that say he was an extremely gifted type of politician.
He would be willing to say anything.
Yeah.
Facts be damned. I moderated a debate between him and Kaplowitz.
Yeah.
He made up anything on there. And Kaplowitz was literally freaking out. He's like, what do I say? You know, it's not true. And I'm like,
but he comes across, a lot of people really like him.
In fact, he was polling for the Putnam County exec position. He would have, at least the poll in the field, they say that he would have won going away. But he burned so many bridges. Within the Republican Party, I mean, they treated him radioactively. And then there was even allegations that there may be, through the Moreland Commission investigation, he himself could be in some trouble here.
With those $23,000 or so worth of suits. But
that he needed for TV.
That he needed. But let's be honest, we're going to miss Greg, and we hope he comes back. This isn't the end for Greg.
He's a good cop.
He's great to talk about. What do you do without Greg Ball to talk about up in these parts? Come on.
Well, it's not like I'm riding a cow home, but yeah.
But here's my question. If there's some substance to the corruption allegations, here's what I don't understand about politicians. Do they really think with these aggressive prosecutors that if you just say you're not running and you pick up and move away, boop, you don't exist anymore? So if you move to Texas with your girlfriend, that's going to make your corruption problems go away?
And if it's corruption, it can't just be suits. Come on.
Right. He knows what it is.
Banana Republic, Brooks Brothers.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because if anybody just says he wants to do real estate development. Okay. New York gubernatorial candidate Rob Astorino, he is stumping across New York, and he's also trying to court the mega donors. Obviously, he's a big fundraising disadvantage in New York State, especially with an incumbent Democratic governor as his challenger. And he goes to folks like Home Depot co-founder Ken Langone, who was one of the big backers for Chris Christie. Mr. Langone, though, didn't like the idea too much, saying that Astorino recently asked him to help fundraise, and that he reminded Astorino of the hypocrisy of asking for help 2 months after making public statements against the same Ken Langone. Is this signs that Astorino's going to have trouble getting big donors to open up pockets because they think it's throwing good money after bad?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the way that how Cuomo has angered many on the left with taking pro-business positions, it's these types of pro-business Republicans that are all just capitalist Republicans that are going to come to Andrew's side now and defend him and support him and take cheap shots at a Republican like Astorino. And if they cut off his money line, then it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult for Astorino to gain any traction whatsoever.
But Richard, Mr. Astorino was a skilled politician. He didn't know Politics 101 up against Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo's going to cut the money off. Politics 102, he's going to brand you a racist and that you live in an affluent suburb, even though the governor lives in the same suburb. That doesn't matter anymore, you know? That you can't let that get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
Cuomo is going to throw everything at him, including the kitchen sink. And so we wish Mr. Astorino well, and I really do believe that one day he will be the governor, but we'll see what's in his past, because you better believe the Cuomo folks, I know you don't believe me on this, the Cuomo folks are looking. They're looking at everything.
I believe it. One quick thing, I know we're going to hit a break. Little item I saw that a fundraiser for Governor Cuomo also is doing some fundraising for none other than Mr. John Cahill, also a guest in this program, who is the Republican nominee for Attorney General running against the incumbent Mr. Schneiderman. Is it just me being the cynic that I am? But does this happen, first of all, more than we think, that fundraisers raise for both parties?
No.
It doesn't happen, right?
Very rare.
You pick a side, especially in an election season.
Rare, yeah, it's rare. I mean, listen, there could be Christine Quinn fundraisers that are now helping de Blasio with his second term.
But that's in the same party.
Yeah, that's the same party. This type of stuff doesn't happen.
Okay,
it's rare.
So we know, well, we believe from folks that we've spoken to, that there's no love lost between the governor and the attorney general. Certainly the governor and the controller, poor Tom DiNapoli. But this is interesting. Does he want to make life difficult for Mr. Schneiderman? Am I reading way too much into this?
No, absolutely not. Silent Schneiderman? No, absolutely not. No, of course he does. Hey, listen, he may be better served if Schneiderman's not in there. And, as much as, fundraisers do try to stick to the same party, their first and primary interest is in getting access. And if they can get access through Cuomo and through a Republican comptroller or Republican attorney general, they're going to do it. And just to get back to this story, the previous story, I mean, the thing that shocked me the most about that was, not shocking, I guess, but the idea that, you're talking about somebody like Ken Langone. That's the people that you can't upset, the people with money. And so, it's just, speaks to this whole issue of money in politics that, quite frankly, Governor Cuomo isn't addressing at all.
No.
Obviously for obvious reasons.
And Richard, it's an advantage to the power of incumbency. When you're the sitting governor in a state like New York and you have the personality of an Andrew Cuomo, listen, and I've seen, they don't do it publicly, but a Democrat may say, listen, help me out, help my Republican friend, wink, wink. I want to raise some big money for him. Absolutely. It's seen as a favor to you, and once you're reelected, you return the favor.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
When we come back, a Democrat who certainly doesn't need a lot of introduction, Hillary Clinton, she's dodging rapid fire as the attacks pour in from the right. But could this actually bring a boost to her campaign here? And would she love to get this out of the way in 2014 if, in fact, she's running, as we all believe, in 2016? We'll be right back.